Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the English Globe, the podcast where we help you learn English step by step, one conversation at a time. I'm Adam, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today for another fantastic episode.
Hi there, listeners. I'm Julia, and we're so excited to share today's topic with you. Whether you're at home on your way to work or just looking for a little English practice in your day, we're glad you've tuned in. We have a really exciting idea to talk about, one that might change the way you think about learning English.
Yes, that's right. Today we're diving into a simple but very powerful concept. You know, Julia, many people believe that to improve in a language, they need to spend hours studying grammar, reading textbooks, or taking long, intensive courses. But what if we told you that achieving real progress, maybe even fluency, could be possible by dedicating just 15 minutes a day?
Absolutely, Adam. I think sometimes the thought of spending hours studying can feel overwhelming for a lot of people. We all have busy lives, right? There's work, school, family, friends, hobbies. There's so much going on. So, the idea of finding hours in a day just for English, it's honestly not realistic for everyone. That's why today we're talking about something that can fit into any schedule, no matter how busy.
Exactly. The idea of just 15 minutes a day might sound small, but here's the amazing part. That small daily commitment can actually make a huge difference over time. When we practice something every day, even if it's just a few minutes, our brains start to adjust. It's like we're creating a habit, and over time, this habit can lead to great improvement in speaking, listening, and understanding English.
Yes. And there's some real science behind this idea. Our brains respond well to short, focused practice sessions, especially when we do them regularly. With 15 minutes a day, you're not only learning new words or phrases, but you're also keeping your mind active in English. Even though it's a short time, it builds consistency, and that consistency is one of the most powerful tools for language learning.
So think about it like this. Rather than putting off English practice because you feel you don't have hours to study, you can actually start seeing progress with small but steady steps. Just 15 minutes a day. It's easy to fit into a busy schedule, and it helps remove the stress of long study sessions. Imagine making English a quick part of your daily routine, like brushing your teeth or having a cup of coffee.
Yes. And it's important to remember that progress doesn't happen overnight. Fluency isn't a switch that turns on suddenly. It's more like a journey. And every 15 minutes you invest in this journey brings you closer to your goal. In this episode, we're going to discuss exactly how you can use those 15 minutes wisely. We'll go over practical activities you can do, simple tips to stay motivated, and even a few ways to track your progress so you can see how much you're growing.
Right. So, if you've been feeling like there's no time to work on your English, or if you've tried studying for hours but felt burnt out or frustrated, this approach might be exactly what you need. We're here to show you that every bit of practice counts, and with just a small commitment each day, you can start to see real results.
And remember, you're not alone in this. We know many people around the world are trying to improve their English, just like you. So, let's make this journey fun, manageable, and something you can actually look forward to each day. At the English Globe, we're here to support you every step of the way, helping you turn those 15 minutes into a valuable part of your routine.
Yes, absolutely. So, grab a notebook or just relax and listen as we walk you through this process. By the end of this episode, we hope you'll feel inspired to try out this 15-minute method and start seeing just how effective it can be for your English journey.
All right, let's dive in. We're going to share some exciting ideas, examples, and tips to help you make the most of those 15 minutes. Remember, no effort is too small, and every bit of practice is a step toward your goal. Let's get started.
All right. Now that we've introduced the idea of practicing English for just 15 minutes a day, let's dive into why this small, consistent effort is actually so powerful when it comes to learning a language. You know, Julia, it might seem hard to believe at first, but research and real-life experiences show that these short daily practices can often be even more effective than studying for hours once in a while.
Yes, absolutely, Adam. There's something almost magical about consistency. When we talk about learning a new language, we're not just talking about memorizing a list of words or practicing a few grammar exercises. We're talking about building a skill, and like with any skill, whether it's learning to play an instrument or developing a sport, steady and regular practice really adds up over time. The brain loves patterns and routines, so when we engage with English every day, even for just a short time, we're telling our brain, hey, this is important, pay attention.
Exactly, Julia. It's like teaching the brain to get comfortable with English bit by bit. You know, some people think that they need to sit down for hours to really get the language, but the truth is, our minds don't always work that way. Imagine if you only practiced English once a week, but for 3 hours at a time. That's a big block of study time, but by the time you come back to English the next week, you might forget some of what you learned. It's like starting over each time, which can feel frustrating and even make progress slower.
That's such a good point, Adam. I like to think of language learning as planting seeds. When you water a plant every day, even if it's just a little water, it grows steadily and healthily. But if you only water it once in a while, even if you pour a whole bucket at once, it might not thrive in the same way. With English, 15 minutes a day can act like a steady, gentle watering that keeps your skills alive and growing, and over time, it really makes a difference.
And to illustrate just how impactful this can be, let's talk about some real-life examples. I remember a friend of mine, Marco, who really wanted to improve his English but had a very busy schedule with work, family, and everything else. He could only spare about 10 to 15 minutes every day, so he made a habit of using that time to practice a bit of vocabulary or listen to a quick podcast in English. It wasn't a lot of time each day, but over the months, his skills improved in ways that even surprised him. And he told me he actually felt more confident, not just because of the words he was learning, but because he knew he was doing something every day to reach his goal.
I love that story, Adam. And it really goes to show that progress doesn't require perfection or huge chunks of time. I have a similar example from one of my students, Maria, who felt a little discouraged at first because she thought she needed hours every day to improve. But once she tried just practicing for a few minutes each morning, whether it was reading a small paragraph, learning 3 new words, or practicing some pronunciation, she started to notice a difference. Her listening skills, in particular, became sharper because of the regular exposure, even though it was brief. And the best part was that because it was just 15 minutes, she found it easy to make it a part of her day. She even started to look forward to it.
That's fantastic, Julia. And it really shows how a little bit each day goes a long way. You know, I think one of the big advantages of a short daily practice is that it also helps reduce the pressure we sometimes put on ourselves. When people think they need hours, they may feel stressed or guilty if they miss a day. But when you tell yourself, I just need 15 minutes, it feels more manageable and it's easier to stay motivated. Even on the busiest of days, most of us can find those 15 minutes if we plan ahead.
And because it's short, it doesn't feel like a chore or something heavy to do. It's something you can look forward to, like a quick workout for your brain. And Adam, I think this is important for everyone listening today. The point isn't to be perfect or to feel like you need to be learning huge amounts at once. It's really about creating a rhythm with the language and making English feel like a natural, enjoyable part of your daily life. It's actually quite empowering because no matter what's happening in your life, you know you're still moving forward with English.
Yes, that's such a good way to put it. And listeners, remember, even if you have a very busy day, those 15 minutes can be incredibly valuable. Think of it as a daily gift to yourself. You're investing in your future, your confidence, and your ability to communicate with others around the world. And just like Maria and Marco, the learners we mentioned, this kind of practice can be transformative over time, even if it feels like a small effort in the beginning.
And here's another powerful thing about consistency. It actually helps create a sense of accomplishment. When you practice every day, you can look back at the end of the week and see that you've done something each day, no matter how small. This builds momentum and motivation because you can feel your progress. So even if it's just a few new words or a short listening exercise, each day adds up, and that sense of achievement grows.
That's so true, Julia. And I think everyone listening today can take away the message that consistency really is the key to language learning success. It's not always about the time, it's about the habit. So whether you're a student, a professional, a parent, or someone just trying to learn English for fun, remember that you can always find a way to fit in a little practice each day. And that's where the magic happens.
Yes, and we believe that everyone listening can make this work for them. Whether you're learning English for your career, for travel, or simply because you love languages, just 15 minutes a day can make a big difference. Every small step counts, and we're here to support you on that journey.
Exactly. So remember, listeners, no matter what your schedule looks like or what obstacles you face, try to find those 15 minutes each day. Just that small amount of time will bring you closer to your goal, and before you know it, English will start to feel more familiar and comfortable.
So, now that we've talked about how powerful consistency is for language learning, let's move on to another important part of making those 15 minutes effective: setting goals for each practice session. You know, Julia, a lot of people might feel lost if they just sit down to practice without a specific focus in mind. That's why having a small, realistic goal can really help. It's like giving each session a little purpose, so you walk away feeling like you've accomplished something, even in a short time. Absolutely, Adam. When we give ourselves clear, achievable goals, it's so much easier to stay motivated and feel like we're making progress. I think sometimes people start with the big goal of, I want to speak English fluently, and then feel overwhelmed because it's such a large goal that takes time. But if we break that down into smaller daily goals, like learning 3 new phrases or practicing pronunciation for a few minutes, it suddenly feels a lot more manageable. Each of those small goals is like a step along the way to fluency, and it adds up over time.
Exactly, Julia. And one method that can really help with setting effective goals is something called SMART goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's a way of setting goals that makes them clearer and more structured. Let's break it down a bit for everyone listening so they can see how this approach works with language learning.
Great idea, Adam. Let's start with the first part. Specific. This means that your goal should be clear and focused, not too general. So instead of saying, I want to get better at English, which is a big and vague goal, you could set a more specific goal like, today I will focus on learning 3 new English phrases. That way you have a clear target for your practice session and you know exactly what you're working on.
Yes, and that leads us to the measurable part, which means your goal should have some way to track your progress. If you say, I want to improve my English, that's hard to measure. But if your goal is, I want to learn 3 new words and use them in sentences, you can easily check at the end of your session whether you learned and used those 3 words. You can measure your success, and that helps you see the results of your efforts.
Right. And I think the achievable part is also really important, especially with language learning. This means setting a goal that is realistic and possible to accomplish in just 15 minutes. So, rather than aiming to read an entire article or learn 20 new words, a more achievable goal might be, today I'll read 1 paragraph and focus on understanding it. Or, I'll learn 3 new words. It's about setting goals that challenge you a little, but don't feel overwhelming.
Exactly, Julia. And then we come to relevant. This means your goal should be something that matters to you and is connected to your overall purpose for learning English. If you're learning English for travel, maybe your goals could focus on phrases for directions or ordering food. If you're learning English for your career, you might want to focus on vocabulary related to your field of work. That way, each goal feels like it's moving you closer to your own personal language goals, and it's not just random practice.
Yes. And finally, we have time-bound, which means setting a time limit for your goal. In this case, we already have 15 minutes, so we know exactly how much time we'll spend. Having a time limit makes it easier to stay focused, and it can also help you build a habit of daily practice. So, a time-bound goal might look like, I'll spend 15 minutes practicing 3 new phrases, or I'll read a paragraph and look up any new words. You know you'll finish at the end of that time, which keeps things manageable and helps avoid burnout.
That's right, Julia. So, for everyone listening, when you sit down to practice, think about setting a SMART goal for your session. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as, learn 3 new words today, or practice saying 5 sentences out loud. Even these small goals give you a focus, and it's amazing how they build up over time.
And it's really about keeping things enjoyable and doable. For example, if you're setting a goal to practice speaking, maybe your goal is, today I'll talk out loud about my day for 5 minutes. You can describe what you did, what you ate, or where you went. And even if it's just for yourself, that speaking practice is powerful. It helps you get comfortable with forming sentences and speaking English out loud, which is essential for fluency.
Yes, and you can even set goals that fit into different language skills. One day, your goal could be for vocabulary, like learning 3 new words. Another day, your goal could be reading, like reading a short paragraph or article. Another day, it could be listening, like watching a short English video or listening to a podcast. By mixing up your goals, you're also giving yourself variety, which keeps learning interesting.
Absolutely, Adam. And these goals are really flexible. For example, if you're having a busy day, maybe your goal is simply to practice 2 new words or to review something you've already learned. It doesn't have to be huge to be valuable. And as you keep setting and achieving these small goals, you'll feel a real sense of accomplishment. Even a small win every day can help build confidence and motivation.
And if you're someone who likes writing, you could also set goals around writing practice. For example, you might say, today, I'll write 3 sentences about my favorite book or movie. It's a quick exercise, but it gets you thinking in English and practicing forming sentences. Writing can be a great way to reinforce what you've learned and organize your thoughts.
That's a great suggestion, Adam. And listeners, as you set these small goals, remember to celebrate your progress. Every new word, every sentence spoken, every paragraph read is a step forward. It's so easy to feel like you're not moving fast enough, but these small achievements really do add up. And by focusing on what you're learning each day, you can stay positive and motivated on your language journey.
Yes. And one more thing. Don't be afraid to repeat goals, especially if you're working on something challenging. For example, if you set a goal to learn 5 words and they feel difficult, it's okay to use the same goal the next day to reinforce what you've learned. Repetition helps deepen your understanding and makes new words or phrases feel more natural over time.
So true, Adam. Language learning isn't a race. It's more like a steady journey. And each of these small goals is like a step that brings you closer to fluency. And remember, setting goals doesn't mean putting pressure on yourself. It's just a way to give each practice session a bit of direction so that over time you see the progress you're making.
So, listeners, as you think about your 15-minute sessions, try starting with one simple goal that feels right for you. Whether it's learning a few new words, practicing a few sentences out loud, or listening to a short video, each goal counts. And as Julia said, don't forget to celebrate those small wins.
Yes, we believe in you. and we're so glad to be part of this journey with you. So, set those small goals, enjoy the process, and remember that each 15 minutes brings you closer to your goal of fluency. You've got this.
All right, so we've talked about setting goals for those short 15-minute practice sessions. Now, let's dive into some specific activities that you can do for each language skill: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Each of these activities is designed to fit right into that 15-minute window, so they're manageable and focused. We'll go over some examples and give you tips on how to make each of these exercises as effective as possible.
That's right, Adam. And the great thing is, you don't need fancy resources or lots of time to make a real impact. Sometimes, the simplest activities can give you the most benefit if you're consistent. So let's start with listening, which is a great way to expose yourself to natural English sounds, vocabulary, and rhythm.
Absolutely, Julia. So for listening practice, you could try listening to a short podcast episode or a video clip. The key here is to choose something short, maybe just 5 to 10 minutes long, that's suited to your level. You want something you can mostly understand, but with a few new words or phrases to keep it interesting. For beginners, there are podcasts and YouTube channels designed specifically to make English easier to follow.
Exactly. And one tip to make the most of your listening time is to focus on understanding the main idea rather than getting stuck on every single word. For example, if you're listening to a story about someone's daily routine, try to catch the main points: what activities they did, where they went, and how they felt. If there's a word or phrase you don't understand, that's okay. You can jot it down and look it up later, but try to stay engaged with the overall story.
And if you're up for a challenge, you can try repeating some of the sentences you hear. Repeating sentences helps reinforce the words, and it's a great way to practice pronunciation too. For example, if the speaker says, "Today, I went to the market to buy some fresh vegetables," you can pause the audio and repeat that sentence out loud. This way, you're training both your listening and speaking skills in one activity.
That's a fantastic tip, Adam. And now let's move on to speaking practice, which is a skill that can feel a bit scary at first. But if you start small, it gets easier over time. One way to practice speaking in just 15 minutes is by choosing a few sentences or phrases to repeat. You can even pick a topic and talk to yourself about it, like describing what you see around you or talking about your plans for the day.
Yes, Julia. And for beginners, practicing pronunciation is key, even if it's just repeating simple phrases. For instance, you could pick a sentence like, "I'm going to the store to buy some milk," and focus on saying it clearly. Try to say it a few times, paying attention to each word. And don't worry if it feels strange to speak to yourself. It's actually a great way to build confidence and get comfortable with English sounds.
And if you want to make it a bit more interactive, you can record yourself speaking. Listening to yourself afterward can help you notice any areas where you might want to improve, like the way you pronounce certain sounds or your rhythm. You can try recording a sentence, listening to it, and then repeating it until it feels just right. It's a simple exercise, but it's amazing how much it can help.
Yes, absolutely. And that brings us to reading, which is a wonderful way to build vocabulary and improve comprehension. For reading, you could find a short article, a blog post, or even just a few paragraphs from a story. One of the best things about reading in English is that you can go at your own pace and take time to understand new words and phrases.
I agree, Adam. And here's a tip to make reading more effective. As you read, try to visualize the scene or story in your mind. If you're reading a story about a trip to the beach, imagine the sand, the waves, the people playing. Visualization helps bring the language to life, making it easier to remember what you read. And if you come across a word you don't know, you can underline it and look it up afterward.
That's a great approach, Julia. And if you have a little notebook, you can even jot down interesting words or phrases as you read. Later, you can review these words to reinforce your memory. For example, if you learn a new word like sunset, you could try to use it in a sentence, like, I watched the sunset at the beach. Small steps like these really help with language retention.
Absolutely, Adam. And finally, let's talk about writing, which is a fantastic way to practice forming sentences and organizing thoughts in English. One simple writing activity you can do in 15 minutes is to write a few sentences about your day. You don't need to write a lot, just focus on a few things you did or something interesting that happened. It could be as simple as, today I went for a walk in the park. The weather was nice and I saw some birds.
Exactly, Julia. Writing doesn't have to be complicated. You can start with very basic sentences, and as you get comfortable, you can try adding more details. If you write, I went to the park, you could add more like, I saw a big fountain and people having a picnic. Little by little, you're building your ability to express yourself in English, and that's incredibly valuable.
And a helpful tip is to choose topics that are relevant to you. If you enjoy cooking, you could write about a meal you prepared. If you like sports, maybe you can write about a game you watched. Writing about things you enjoy makes the practice feel more natural and fun. Plus, it's a great way to keep building your vocabulary in areas that matter to you.
That's a perfect point, Julia. And for everyone listening, we know that these activities might feel a bit challenging at first, but that's completely normal. Just start small, and with each session, you'll find that it gets easier. Speaking of which, why don't we do a quick demo, Julia? We can give an example of one of these activities, maybe speaking or reading, so our listeners can hear what it sounds like.
Great idea, Adam. Let's do a speaking practice demo. How about we pick a simple topic like my favorite food, and each of us will take a turn describing it. This way, listeners can hear how to practice speaking with a topic that's easy and familiar.
Perfect, I'll go first. So, my favorite food is pasta, specifically spaghetti with tomato sauce. I like it because it's so simple to make, and the flavors are really comforting. I usually add some garlic, basil, and maybe a little bit of cheese on top. And I enjoy cooking it because it reminds me of family dinners when I was growing up. That's it. Just a few sentences describing why I like pasta.
Nice one, Adam. Okay, my turn. My favorite food is sushi. I love how fresh and light it tastes, and I enjoy all the different varieties, like salmon, tuna, and even vegetarian options with avocado. Sushi is really popular here, so it's also a fun food to enjoy with friends. And the rice and seaweed together make it a unique flavor that I just love.
That was great, Julia. And listeners, this is something you can easily try on your own. Just pick a topic, set a timer for 5 minutes, and practice speaking out loud about it. It's a simple way to get comfortable using English. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is just to practice.
That's right, Adam. These 15-minute activities for listening, speaking, reading, and writing are all manageable steps you can take daily. Little by little, they build up, helping you improve your English skills in a well-rounded way. So, start with one activity today and see how it feels. You might be surprised at how much you can accomplish in just a short time.
Exactly, Julia. And listeners, remember that every bit of practice counts. Just keep going, and soon enough, you'll notice the progress. All right, now let's move on to our final segment, where we'll answer some common questions from our listeners about practicing English daily.
Now that we've explored some activities you can do in those 15 minutes, let's talk about the importance of creating a routine around it. When you make your 15-minute practice part of your daily life, it becomes so much easier to stay consistent. Consistency, after all, is the real key to progress. So, Adam, what are some simple steps that learners can take to start building a steady routine?
Great question, Julia. I think a fantastic starting point is to set a specific time each day for practice. When you know exactly when you're going to practice, it's easier to fit it into your day. For example, if mornings work best, you might practice for 15 minutes before breakfast. Or, if you're a night owl, you could spend the last 15 minutes of your day with English. By setting a time, you're telling your brain, this is important to me, and over time, it becomes a habit.
Exactly, Adam. And another helpful step is choosing a quiet, comfortable spot where you won't be distracted. If you have a desk or a favorite chair, that can become your English learning corner. Every time you sit there, your mind will associate it with learning. It could be as simple as sitting at the dining table with your notebook, or even creating a cozy spot with a few English books and a lamp. Having a set location makes it feel like your own mini classroom, even if it's just for a few minutes.
That's a great idea, Julia. And speaking of notebooks, having a language notebook specifically for your English practice can really help too. It's a place to jot down new words, phrases, ideas, or even questions you might want to look up later. Each day, you can write the date, a quick goal, and then any notes from your session. Keeping everything in one place not only helps you stay organized, but also allows you to see your progress over time.
Yes, it's so encouraging to look back and see all that you've learned. Plus, a notebook lets you track small wins and progress, which can be really motivating. Now, let's go over some sample routines based on different preferences, because everyone learns in their own way. Adam, let's say we have a listener who prefers listening activities. What would be a good 15-minute routine for them?
Good question, Julia. For someone who loves listening, they could start by choosing a short podcast episode or a video, maybe 5 to 10 minutes long. They'd listen once, just to get a feel for the content, and then they might listen again, paying attention to any interesting words or phrases. If they're using a notebook, they could write down 1 or 2 new words they learned. Another idea is to pause after each section and try to repeat what was said. This way, they're practicing both listening and speaking.
That's perfect, Adam. Repeating what you hear is such a useful technique. It really helps you get comfortable with pronunciation, even if you're just doing it on your own. Now, for those who prefer speaking practice, their routine might look a bit different. They could start with a short warm-up, like saying a few simple sentences about their day. For example, today I went to work. I had lunch with my friend. I came home and watched a movie. Just a few sentences to get talking.
And to make it more interesting, they could pick a new topic each day. One day, they might talk about their favorite food, the next day about a place they want to visit, and so on. And if they have a language partner, they could record a short message and send it to them, or even record themselves speaking and listen back. Hearing yourself helps you catch little things like pronunciation or rhythm, so it's a great way to improve.
Absolutely, Adam. Now for reading, a simple routine could involve picking a short article, a few paragraphs from a book, or even reading captions on social media in English. They could read for about 5 minutes, underline any words they don't know, and then look those words up. After that, they could read the text again, this time trying to understand the meaning of the new words in context. Over time, they'll start recognizing these words in other places, which is very rewarding.
And for learners who enjoy writing, a good routine might involve writing a few sentences about their day or their thoughts. This doesn't have to be complicated, just a simple journal entry. For instance, today, I studied English for 15 minutes. I learned 3 new words. I feel proud of my progress. Over time, they could challenge themselves to write a bit more or describe something in greater detail, like what they did over the weekend.
That's a wonderful way to build a habit, Adam. Now let's share a few tips to make sure these routines become a daily habit, even for busy days. One tip that can really help is using reminders. You could set an alarm on your phone or add it to your calendar. A simple notification can be the nudge you need to remember, oh, it's time for my English practice.
Exactly, Julia. And another way to stay on track is by connecting your English practice with something you already do every day. For example, if you always have a cup of tea in the evening, that could be your English practice time. Or if you go for a walk in the morning, you could listen to an English podcast during that time. Pairing it with an existing routine makes it easier to remember.
That's a really practical approach, Adam. And another helpful tip is to reward yourself. Every time you complete a week of 15-minute sessions, give yourself a small treat, like watching your favorite show or having a snack. Rewards help reinforce the habit and make it feel more enjoyable.
Yes, and one last idea is to keep it positive. Some days might feel easier than others, and that's completely okay. Even if you don't get as much done one day, remember that showing up and practicing, even a little, is still progress. Consistency is all about those little steps.
So true, Adam. And for everyone listening, remember that building a routine doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just start with one small habit and keep it simple. Over time, those daily 15 minutes really add up and bring you closer to fluency.
Absolutely. So, find a time, choose a spot, grab that language notebook, and make it happen. You're building something valuable with each session. Let's keep it up together. Now, let's move on to the next section, where we answer some listener questions about English practice routines.
Now that we've covered how to set up a daily 15-minute routine, let's talk about something just as important: staying motivated. Learning a new language takes time, and staying motivated is essential for reaching your goals. So, Adam, what are some ways learners can keep that motivation high, even when they hit a bump along the way?
Great question, Julia. Motivation really is key, and sometimes the best way to stay motivated is by setting small, enjoyable rewards for yourself. For instance, if you've practiced English for 15 minutes every day in a week, you could treat yourself to something special. It could be a nice meal, a new book, or even watching a movie in English. Rewards don't have to be big, but they give you something to look forward to and celebrate your progress.
That's so true, Adam. And another fantastic way to stay motivated is by tracking your progress. There are so many ways to do this, but one of the simplest is by keeping a language notebook. Every time you learn a new word, phrase, or expression, jot it down. You'll be able to look back and see how far you've come, even after just a few weeks. Seeing that list grow can be really motivating because it's a concrete reminder of everything you've achieved.
Absolutely, Julia. And for those who enjoy using technology, there are plenty of apps that make tracking progress really easy. Language learning apps like Duolingo, Memrise, and Babbel have built-in progress tracking, so you can see how many new words you've learned, how many days you've practiced, and even how your skills are improving over time. Apps often have streaks where they count the days you've practiced in a row, and it feels great to keep a streak going.
Yes, apps make it fun by turning learning into a game. And if you miss a day, don't worry, just get back into it. Consistency is more important than perfection. Now, another idea for staying motivated is to join a study group or practice with a language partner. When you have someone else learning with you, it creates a support system. You can share your goals, help each other with new phrases, and encourage each other on days when one of you might be feeling less motivated.
That's a fantastic point, Julia. And with study groups, you don't even have to meet in person. There are online language exchange communities and social media groups where you can find people who are also learning English. You could practice over text, video calls, or even voice messages. Having someone to talk to about your progress, even if it's just once a week, can make a huge difference.
Absolutely, Adam. And sometimes, sharing even the smallest accomplishments with others can feel so rewarding. Now let's talk about one more way to stay motivated: setting specific learning goals. When you know what you want to achieve, it gives you direction. For example, a goal could be, I want to learn 10 new words this week, or I want to be able to talk about my daily routine in English by the end of the month.
Yes, setting goals really helps you stay focused. And it's great to keep your goals small and achievable. That way, you feel successful and can build on that success over time. Tracking these small achievements can be as simple as checking off your daily practice sessions or noting down every new word you master. Small wins create a positive cycle of motivation.
And remember, learning a language is a journey, so it's okay to take it step by step. Each word you learn and each sentence you practice brings you closer to fluency. If you ever feel frustrated, just take a moment to look back at what you've accomplished so far. You'll be amazed at how much you've learned, even if it's just been 15 minutes a day.
Exactly, Julia. Progress might feel slow at times, but every little bit counts. So, to all our listeners, keep a notebook, set small goals, reward yourself, and remember that you're building something meaningful. Every 15-minute session is a step toward your goal.
And on days when motivation feels low, remind yourself why you started learning English in the first place. Maybe it's for travel, work, or connecting with people from other cultures. Whatever your reason, let it inspire you to keep going. We're here with you on this journey, and we're so proud of the progress you're making.
So true, Julia. Whether it's using an app, tracking new words in a notebook, or rewarding yourself, find what keeps you excited about learning. Let's keep going, and remember that consistency is your greatest tool. Now let's move on to some listener questions about creating personalized routines. Now, we've covered how to make the most of your 15-minute practice sessions, but every learner faces challenges along the way. Whether it's finding time, dealing with slow progress, or feeling stuck in a learning rut, these obstacles can sometimes feel discouraging. But the good news is there are simple solutions to keep you moving forward, and we're here to talk about them.
That's right, Adam. One of the most common obstacles that learners face is lack of time. Many people feel like they just don't have enough hours in the day to sit down and study. But with just 15 minutes a day, you can actually overcome this barrier. The key is to fit English into the pockets of time you already have. Think about it. Everyone has 15 minutes to spare, even on the busiest days.
Exactly, Julia. And it doesn't always need to be a formal study session. For instance, you could listen to an English podcast while you're cooking or cleaning, or even while commuting. It's amazing how much you can absorb just by having English in the background during everyday activities. It's all about making English a part of your routine, even when you're not sitting at your desk with a textbook.
I love that idea, Adam. And on top of that, combining English with your daily activities helps you practice in a natural, stress-free way. You're not forcing yourself to study, you're just surrounding yourself with the language. So, next time you're making breakfast or doing the dishes, why not turn on an English audiobook or watch a short video? You'd be surprised how much your brain can process even if you're not actively studying.
Absolutely. And, some learners also feel like their progress is really slow, which can be frustrating. They may practice every day, but feel like they're not improving as quickly as they would like. I've been there myself. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see immediate results, but the truth is, language learning is a gradual process. Fluency doesn't happen overnight, and every day you spend learning, even just 15 minutes, is a step forward.
That's such a great point, Adam. Slow progress doesn't mean no progress. It's important to remember that language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. Even small daily habits, like learning a few new words or practicing speaking for a few minutes, add up over time, and eventually you'll look back and be amazed at how much you've learned. Progress is often invisible day by day, but it's there. Keep going and trust that those small steps are leading you toward fluency.
Right. And if you're feeling stuck, that's another challenge many learners face. Sometimes you reach a point where you feel like you're not getting any better or that you've hit a plateau. This can be really discouraging, but don't worry. Feeling stuck is a normal part of the learning process. The best way to break through a plateau is to shake up your routine. Try switching up the activities you're doing or focusing on a different skill. For example, if you've been listening a lot and feel like you're not improving, try speaking more. Or if you've been practicing vocabulary, try focusing on grammar for a while.
Yes, changing things up can make a big difference. You could also try mixing in some fun and interactive activities to break the monotony. For example, you could watch a favorite TV show in English, write a short story, or even start keeping a journal in English about your day. Doing something that excites you or that feels different from your usual routine can reignite your passion for learning and help you feel more engaged.
And another tip for overcoming challenges is to use reminders. Life can get busy, and sometimes it's easy to forget about your 15-minute practice session. One solution is to set reminders on your phone. You can set a daily alert that pops up and says something like, "Time to practice English." You can also add a note to your calendar or create a daily checklist. Having a reminder helps keep you accountable and ensures you don't forget.
I agree, Adam. I use reminders all the time and they really help me stay on track. Another strategy is to make your practice sessions a non-negotiable part of your day. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't skip that, right? Make your 15 minutes of English practice just as important and make sure you do it at the same time every day. That way, it becomes part of your routine and you won't have to think about it. It just becomes second nature.
That's a great idea, Julia. Consistency is key, and having a fixed time each day to practice, no matter what, will help you make it a habit. And don't forget to be kind to yourself. If you miss a day, don't stress. Just pick it up again the next day. Learning a language is a journey, and like any journey, there will be bumps along the way. It's okay to have tough days or feel frustrated sometimes. The important thing is to keep going and stay positive.
Exactly, Adam. And when you do feel stuck, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are many resources like language forums, study groups, or even teachers who can give you advice or new techniques to try. Sometimes just having someone else's perspective can help you see things in a new light and reignite your motivation.
Great point, Julia. Don't be afraid to reach out for support, whether it's from a teacher, fellow learners, or even a language partner. You're not in this alone, and together, we can overcome any challenges that come our way.
And finally, remember that learning a language is a process of small wins. Celebrate those little victories, whether it's learning a new word, improving your pronunciation, or having a short conversation in English. Every step counts, and every moment of practice gets you closer to your goal.
Well said, Julia. Overcoming challenges is part of the journey, and with patience, creativity, and consistency, you'll break through any barriers that come your way. As we near the end of today's episode, let's take a moment to recap the key points we've discussed so far. Learning English, like any skill, requires dedication and consistency, but the good news is, you don't need to commit hours every day to see results. We've emphasized throughout the podcast that small, consistent practice can have a big impact. Just 15 minutes a day can make a huge difference in your language journey. It's not about spending hours, it's about consistency.
Exactly, Adam. Consistency is everything when it comes to learning a language. We also discussed the importance of setting clear, small goals for each practice session. Whether it's learning 3 new words, practicing speaking for 5 minutes, or listening to a short English podcast, having these small, manageable goals helps you stay focused and motivated. And when you break your language practice into smaller, achievable tasks, you make it much easier to maintain progress every day.
And let's not forget about the power of simplicity. Learning English doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need to sit in front of a textbook for hours or memorize long lists of vocabulary. Instead, focus on practical activities that fit into your daily routine, like listening to English music while cooking or reading a short article on your phone during lunch. Small actions, when done consistently, will add up and lead to improvement. The key is to make learning English a natural part of your day, not a big, overwhelming task.
That's right. Learning English doesn't have to be hard. As we mentioned earlier, Even on your busiest days, you can still find 15 minutes to dedicate to your English practice. Think about how much time you spend scrolling through social media or watching TV. You can use just a fraction of that time for your language learning. And when you commit to that, you'll be amazed at how much progress you can make in just a few weeks or months. The key is starting small and being consistent.
And Julia, let's remind our listeners that the path to fluency isn't always straight, and there will be ups and downs along the way. It's normal to feel frustrated at times, or to think you're not improving fast enough. But remember, every time you practice, no matter how small, you're getting closer to your goal. Fluency doesn't come overnight, but with steady, daily practice, it is definitely achievable.
Absolutely, Adam. And that's why we encourage our listeners to start today. Right now, you can set a simple goal for your first 15-minute session. Maybe it's learning 3 new words, or listening to an English podcast for 15 minutes. Whatever it is, the important thing is to get started. Once you do, you'll feel more confident and excited to continue practicing every day. The journey to fluency begins with that first step, and it only takes 15 minutes.
So, to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to take that step today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Commit to just 15 minutes of English practice and see where it takes you. Whether you're at home, on the bus, or during a break at work, there's always time for a quick English session.
And remember, every small step counts. It's not about how fast you go. It's about keeping that consistency and enjoying the process. Learning English is a journey, and every day you practice, you're moving closer to your goal. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself, and don't worry if you miss a day or two. What matters is that you get back on track and keep going.
Exactly, Julia. You've got this. We believe in you, and we know that with just 15 minutes a day, you can achieve great things. So go ahead, give it a try, and let today be the start of your journey towards English fluency.
We hope you feel motivated and ready to begin. Remember, language learning is a process, but with consistency, patience, and determination, you will succeed. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to hear about your progress and can't wait to see you reach your goals.
As we come to the end of today's episode, we just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for joining us on this journey today. We truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to listen to the podcast, and we hope that what we've shared with you has inspired and motivated you to take the next step in your English learning journey. Whether you've been studying for a while or just starting out, we believe that the tips, strategies, and activities we discussed today can make a meaningful difference in your language practice. And remember, it's not about how much time you spend, it's about the consistency and effort you put into it.
Yes, Adam, thank you so much to all of our listeners. We love having you with us, and we're thrilled to be part of your learning process. We know that learning a new language can feel like a big challenge at times, but it's important to remember that every little bit counts. It's those small, consistent steps that will lead to huge progress over time. We hope that our discussion today about dedicating just 15 minutes a day to English practice has inspired you to take action. And most importantly, to believe that you can succeed.
Absolutely, Julia. And now we'd like to challenge you, yes, you. We want to encourage you to take what you've learned today and put it into practice right away. For the next week, we challenge you to commit to just 15 minutes of English practice every single day. It doesn't matter if it's listening to a short podcast, reading an article, practicing speaking aloud, or writing a few sentences in English. Just spend 15 minutes a day doing something that moves you forward in your learning. And here's the fun part. We'd love for you to share your experience with us and the rest of the English Globe community.
That's right. We want to hear from you. After 1 week of practicing your 15-minute routine, we invite you to share your experience with us. Tell us how it went, what activities you tried, and how you felt at the end of the week. Was it easy? Did you face any challenges? And most importantly, how did you feel after dedicating just 15 minutes a day to improving your English? You can share your journey with us through our social media channels or even comment on our podcast page. This is a great opportunity for all of us to connect, learn from each other, and celebrate the small victories along the way.
We can't wait to hear all of your stories. Whether you feel proud of how much you've learned, or maybe even frustrated at times, we want to know. It's all part of the learning process. And by sharing your experiences, you not only help yourself by reflecting on your journey, but you also inspire others who might be facing the same challenges or doubts. So, take on the challenge, and let's support each other in building this 15-minute habit that can make a real difference in your English skills.
Exactly. And remember, even though it's just 15 minutes, those moments add up. They are the building blocks of fluency, and if you make this practice a regular part of your day, you'll see results in no time. So, after you finish listening to this podcast, make a commitment to yourself. Grab your phone, set a timer, and start your first 15-minute session. Then, take the challenge head-on for a week. We believe in you, and we know you can do it.
So, let's do this together. Set that timer for 15 minutes and begin your journey towards English fluency. We are so excited to hear about your progress. Don't forget to tag us or reach out to share your stories and successes. The English Globe community is here for you, and we're all in this together.
Thank you once again for listening. We are so grateful to have you as part of our community. Remember, it's the little efforts, the small steps, and the consistent habits that will lead you to success. So, let's get started today, and we can't wait to hear all about your experiences with the 15-minute routine.
Until next time, keep practicing, stay motivated, and enjoy the journey. Take care, and we'll see you soon on the English Globe.